We make students eat a lot of spinach and some Brussels sprouts and other stuff, and we tell them it's good for them, and I think it's true. But we've also got to understand that the flip side of the opportunity cost of doing a full-time MBA is that once the students commit, it becomes a 24/7 undertaking for them. So if they're in the classroom 12 hours a week, they've got a lot of other hours to fill, and they fill it with organized activity by us, and then that's not even enough. They do additional on top. So I'll give you a for instance, that's from just the last couple of months. So I was in San Francisco and I met a student who went on one of our venture trips, Mike Useem organizes, to Patagonia. And the weather was horrific, and they're getting blasted by 60-kilometer-an-hour winds, as they say outside the US. I know I have to say that because somebody's running for president on the metric system, I think. So I can translate it. There were 37 and a half.
He's the former governor of Rhode Island, where I'm from.
37 and a half mile-an-hour winds. I don't know what that is in knots, so you can tell me in knots in Rhode Island. But so the student was telling me, I said, were you worried? And the person said, of course I was worried, but it was the most life-changing experience I'd had. So that was a venture we organized. Yeah. But at almost exactly the same time, one of our students was at base camp in Everest when the earthquake hit, and spent 3 days bailing people out of that horrific disaster. And that student had done it on his own because it still wasn't enough. What we were providing wasn't enough. So what I see in our full-time MBAs is they invest in the classroom, and ours do more, I think you're right, than other schools. Then there's this whole structure that we organize for them outside, and then they do even more because they understand that both the networking and the leadership opportunities are going to be critical to who they are going forward, and they've given up so much to be in the classroom that when they're to be on campus, that when they're on campus, they jump in with both feet.
Yeah. So how do you continue to evolve in this world we're in, which is for students coming out, whether undergraduate or graduate, I think much more entrepreneurial, much more innovation driven. How do you make sure you?
So here are some. So this is another real hot button for me, because I think Wharton doesn't get nearly as much credit as it deserves in innovation and entrepreneurship. Part of that is for a reason I've already mentioned, which is that if people are innovative in finance, it's not called entrepreneurship. Most people don't think it. But let's go back to a more traditional definition. So we actually have an enormous amount of stuff happening on campus. I think it's too decentralized, though. It's a case where the whole is probably less than the sum of the parts, and that's not good. But we also haven't done a good job of talking up what our students are doing. So the graduating MBA class for the last couple of years, about as many students have gone into technology, broadly understood, as into finance. I don't think most people know that. Yeah. And then the other thing is we have fantastic people in tech. I've started playing what could become a very boring did you know game about Wharton graduates. But did you know that the CEO of LinkedIn is a Wharton graduate? Did you know that number 2 and number 3 at Google are both Wharton graduates? Did you know that the CEO of Oracle is a Wharton graduate? Did you know that the number 2 person at Yahoo is a Wharton graduate? Most people don't know that. And what all those cases tell me is that, of course, the person who founds the company is important, but the person who scales the company is at least as important. And you look at that Wharton skill set, and it's in incredibly high demand in the Bay Area, and I think in Boston and New York too. Why? Because there's so much analytics in the back end of tech companies. We tend to see the glitzy app on the front end, but in the back end, they're all analytics companies, and Wharton people are great at that.
And we continue, that's one of our strengths, right? The analytics and the ability to train people in these areas.
Yeah, and that was true. The way I think about this is very simplistic. When I was learning social science, the problem was there wasn't very much data. The data were crappy and causal inference was hard. Think about the world we live in today. It's completely flipped on its head. The problem is we can't see the horizon because of the blizzard of information that's coming at us. So we've got to do a bit of a pivot. which is to meet the big data era and say, you know, not everyone has to become a data scientist, to use the new jargon. But if you're going to be a leader, you've got to be able to ask good questions of the data scientists. You've got to be able to understand what they're telling you, because it'll help you make better decisions. You know, as you know, corporations are doing experiments all the time on their customer base, on what works internally. And those are all data plays, and you can do them better and worse. And I think we can help people do it better, just as we've always done in finance, but now it's applicable across the board, I think.